News. Hamas has responded to U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to end the war in Gaza, agreeing to some of the key elements of that peace plan. This comes after Trump gave Hamas a Sunday deadline to respond, threatening all hell will break out if Hamas doesn't agree. Well, the CBC's Saša Petricic is covering all of this from Jerusalem for us. So, Saša, what do we know about what Hamas has and has not agreed to at this point?
Well, David, the key word in that intro was some. Hamas has agreed to some of the things that are in that 20-point peace plan, but not all of them. So the headline is that they have agreed to release the hostages, although they also say that more negotiations are needed on the details. And apparently a senior Hamas official told Al Jazeera that releasing them within 72 hours, which is one of the conditions of the 20-point plan, is theoretical and unrealistic. So there is one part of an agreement with some caveats attached to it. Also, the statement from Hamas says that they will move things along and hand over power to a new body, but that body, as Hamas describes it, is a Palestinian one. In other words, not necessarily this international group that Trump envisions, which he would be the head of, which former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair would be also operating. That's not what they're talking about, or that doesn't seem to be the same body as that agreement. And finally, they do not say that they would disarm, or at least not until the occupation is over, which seems to suggest that they won't disarm until Israeli troops and all of its military operations have pulled out of Gaza entirely. Again, that's not what the agreement talks about. The agreement talks about Israeli troops moving out over a longer phased in or phased out period when certain conditions are met by Hamas and by other groups in Gaza. So all of this sounds like Hamas is saying yes, but more negotiations are needed.
Yeah, and so there's still a lot of unanswered questions, obviously, in this, Saša. And we are seeing a post from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary at the White House, showing Donald Trump in the Oval Office with cameras and microphones, saying a response is coming from him soon. So we should hear from the president. But what do we know about what happens now in all of this as we wait to hear Donald Trump's reaction?
Well, that is a good question. Trump has also posted the Hamas statement, the English version of it, on his Truth Social account without any comment. So it's unclear what his view on this is. It seems hard to believe that he would not have known what was coming up, because Hamas has been talking to and presumably negotiating to some extent with some of these Arab mediators, Qatar and Egypt in particular, but also the Americans have been very closely involved as well. So it seems like something's been going on behind the scenes over the past few days, and this is probably not a surprise to Trump, and in fact it may have pushed him to make that deadline, that ultimatum that he made about getting an answer by Sunday night.
Saša, thank you so much. This is CBC's Saša Petricic in Jerusalem. So what does Hamas's partial agreement to the U.S. plan mean for the chances of reaching actual peace? Joining me now, Jon Allen is a former Canadian ambassador to Israel. John, so how much of a step forward is this, for Hamas to agree to eventually give up power, to give up hostages, but not necessarily agree to everything, at least not yet?
Well, the first phase, giving up the hostages and the prisoner release and the end of the war, was always going to be the easy part. It was what was going to happen after and how it was going to happen after that was going to be difficult, and many of the terms regarding Israeli withdrawal, the disarmament, the imposition of this new transitional authority, that was all much more vague, much more ambiguous. And so, as Saša said, this is very much a yes, but agreement by Hamas. And I think I'm not sure that Donald Trump will accept it. And I think Bibi Netanyahu will jump on it to say this was an all or nothing deal, and it's not all. So Israel is not going along with it.
Yeah, and that was certainly my impression of the president's position, President Trump's position. This is a final offer, essentially, from his perspective, because one of the key demands was that Hamas disarm, and Reuters is reporting they got a Hamas official saying the group will not disarm until the Israeli occupation ends, something that Saša just touched on. That is not going to work for Netanyahu. That is not going to work for the IDF. That is probably not going to work for the White House.
Well, the Hamas has always said that if they were going to disarm, if they were going to agree to the prisoner, to the hostage release and the prisoner release, it was always going to be based on Israeli withdrawal. In other words, they weren't going to release the hostages, which is their main card, and then have the IDF remain and potentially restart the war as soon as the hostages and the prisoners are released. So from their perspective, they wanted the IDF out of there so that the war wouldn't restart. And this agreement has a very much phased withdrawal that seems to be dependent on Israel, in many cases, agreeing to the step-by-step withdrawal.
There is also the demand that Hamas play no role in the future of Palestinian governance and Palestinian rule. Hamas has said the parts of the plan touching on Gaza's future and Palestinian rights require talks. And then the quote, within a unified Palestinian national framework, which would include Hamas. How do we interpret that? That seems like maybe a bridge too far, but what do you think they mean by that?
Well, it depends how you want to interpret that last line. If the last line means that the discussion has to include Hamas as well as the Palestinian Authority and other parts of the PLO, but largely the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, that's one thing.
Right.
I think Hamas has said that they're prepared to cede power to a Palestinian technocratic government that was going to be appointed by the Palestinian Authority. And that is included within the Trump plan. But that technocratic government was supposed to be overseen by the Trump-Blair board, etc. And it looks like what Hamas wants is the Palestinian technocratic government and not the overlay.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of that, which includes Hamas, if that's just the discussion, that might work. But if it means the governance and the technocratic board, then obviously that is a non-starter. I'm understanding you correctly
Non-starter.
there?
Absolutely. It's an absolute non-starter. And I don't think they're actually asking for that. They realize that it's got to be the technocratic government.
Okay. Look, John, just a final point, because this is happening quickly and we're waiting to hear from the president. Something is coming from the Oval Office. I mean, what are you watching for in terms of what Trump might say to let us know whether this has the potential to be successful or not?
I think it's going to be hard for the president to say that, he's prepared to enter into a lengthy negotiation with Hamas, which he describes justifiably as a terrorist group, over this. He thinks he worked very hard to bring the whole world on board for the deal of the century, and I don't really think he wants to get involved in a negotiation. And I'm pretty sure that Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to get involved in a negotiation. So unfortunately, I'm not sure this is going to go very far, at least if Hamas sticks to what it said so far.
Okay, John, because the nature of this conflict, we have a statement from the president on Truth Social. It just came in as you were answering that question. And what the president writes is, based on the statement just issued by Hamas, I believe they are ready for a lasting peace. Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. Right now, it's far too dangerous to do that. We are already in discussions on details to be worked out. This is not about Gaza alone. This is about long-sought peace in the Middle East.
Well,
I'm surprised. What's your reaction to that?
I think the Nobel Peace Prize has re-entered the conversation, and Donald wants peace, and he's really putting Bibi into a corner now. That means that this first phase must go ahead, and Israel must stop the ground invasion and the bombing, and halt the war if Bibi agrees to what Trump is saying. That amazes me.
I'm surprised as well, but based on Bibi Netanyahu, when he was in Washington, he did call Qatar to apologize and promise not to attack again based on that military operation, and then endorse this statement standing next to the president at the White House. What do you think Israel's going to say to this coming from the White House? It's very difficult for them to say no to Donald Trump under most circumstances. What about this particular set of circumstances?
Well, you're right. Very difficult to say no to Donald Trump, but his coalition partners have already criticized him heavily for the phone call to Qatar, for agreeing to the deal as it is. So he's now squeezed pretty tight between these two forces, and we'll see just how much power and pressure Donald Trump has if he is going to follow through on this truth tweet.
Okay. Well, Jon Allen, don't go far. We don't know where this is going to go, but that is an interesting development there. Jon Allen, former Canadian ambassador to Israel. Always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.